For many, the concept of being single carries an inherent stigma. It's often associated with loneliness, isolation, and a sense of incompleteness. Society frequently sends the message that to be truly fulfilled, one must be in a romantic relationship. From films to social media to everyday conversations, there's an underlying assumption that happiness is tied to having a partner. However, this idea overlooks the profound significance of being single and the powerful opportunities it offers for self-discovery. Being single doesn't mean being alone. It doesn't signify something is missing in your life or that you're destined to remain isolated forever. In fact, embracing singleness can be one of the most transformative and enlightening experiences of your life. Far from being a phase of loneliness, being single can serve as a time for growth, reflection, and the discovery of your true self. It's during this time that you can explore your personal passions, your boundaries, your values, and the dreams that are uniquely yours. The importance of solitude and self-discovery. When we're in relationships, it's almost inevitable to intertwine our identities with those of our partners. We make space in our lives and hearts for another person, often adjusting our routines, ambitions, and even personalities in subtle ways to accommodate the partnership. We share hopes, dreams, fears, daily habits, and long-term plans. Over time, that merging can feel comforting and familiar, but it can also blur the edges of who we are as individuals. We might forget what it felt like to choose freely, to make decisions purely for ourselves, without factoring in another person's preferences, priorities, or presence. Relationships, even loving and supportive ones, often involve some level of compromise. And over months or years, it's easy for someone's identity to become partially defined by the dynamic they're in. You become his wife, her partner, their person, not necessarily in a possessive sense, but in the way that your existence begins to orbit another's. This is not inherently negative, but it can be limiting, especially if the relationship overshadows personal growth. When we are single, however, something remarkable becomes possible. There is space, a wide, open expanse where your identity can breathe, stretch, and evolve. It's a quiet, often underappreciated freedom, the ability to exist solely for yourself. Without the gravitational pull of another person's emotions, desires, or expectations, you have the opportunity to rediscover the terrain of your own soul. This is not just about living alone or having more free time. It's about the inner spaciousness that emerges when you're not emotionally entangled with someone else's journey. It's about walking into your apartment and being met by silence, and realizing that the silence doesn't have to feel lonely. It can be a sanctuary, a mirror, a gentle, persistent invitation to turn inward and ask yourself, who am I when no one else is shaping me? The foundation of self-discovery is often laid during moments of solitude, not just the kind where you're physically alone, but the deeper solitude where you are emotionally and spiritually unattached. In these moments, we are able to listen more closely to the parts of ourselves that often get drowned out in the noise of relationships, family obligations, or societal expectations. We can begin to hear our own thoughts more clearly. We can separate our desires from our conditioning. When you're single, your attention is not divided. You are free to follow your curiosity wherever it leads, to take a weekend class just because it excites you, to explore a new career path without considering how it might affect someone else, to change your routine, travel on a whim, or spend hours lost in something that feeds your spirit. For instance, consider Amelia, a 35-year-old graphic designer in Berlin. After ending a 7-year relationship, she spent the first few months consumed by grief and uncertainty. But slowly, in the quiet of her solo life, she started sketching again, not for clients, but for herself. She rediscovered her love for painting, a passion she had shelved during her relationship to make space for joint projects and shared dreams. What began as a coping mechanism turned into a new direction. She eventually opened her first solo exhibition, something she never dared to pursue while part of a couple. Or take Layla, a 41-year-old nurse in Melbourne, who realized during her first year of singleness that she had never traveled alone. Every trip in her adult life had been with a partner or friends. So she booked a solo trip to New Zealand. What started as a week-long vacation turned into a 3-month sabbatical. She hiked, read, journaled, and sat in silence for hours. She returned home changed, not because she had found herself in a cliched way, but because she had finally made space to hear herself. These stories aren't rare. All over the world, women are waking up to the truth that solitude is not a punishment. It's an invitation. Being single is not a waiting room for love. It is not a placeholder for the real life that begins when a partner arrives. It is a deeply valuable and transformative chapter in its own right, a time to lay the groundwork for the most important relationship you'll ever have, the one with yourself. In the stillness of single life, you can examine the patterns that once held you back. You can question the beliefs you absorbed in past relationships. Was that really what I wanted? Or was I just trying to keep the peace? You can explore your own values and build a life around them, rather than contorting yourself to fit someone else's mold. This process often brings to light hidden parts of yourself, dreams you abandoned, preferences you silenced, truths you denied. Maybe you realize you've always wanted to live by the sea. Maybe you discover a fascination with architecture or a desire to switch careers, or the simple joy of waking up alone on a Sunday morning and drinking coffee in bed without speaking to anyone. These might seem like small things, but they are actually the building blocks of a life lived in alignment. And when you do choose to enter a relationship again, if you choose to, you do so not out of loneliness or habit, but from a place of wholeness. You no longer need someone to complete you because you've done the work of completing yourself. You bring to the table a full, complex, authentic self, not a half-formed version hoping someone else will fill in the blanks. Being single is not an absence. It's a presence of possibility, of clarity, of growth. It is a sacred time. And it deserves challenging the idea of loneliness. One of the most persistent misconceptions about single life is that it must be synonymous with loneliness. This idea has been deeply woven into our cultural narratives, in movies, books, conversations, even well-meaning advice from friends and family. The single person is often portrayed as incomplete, longing, waiting, or somehow falling short of a full life. This portrayal not only distorts the truth, but also unfairly undermines the richness and potential of being alone. But here's something we don't talk about enough. Loneliness and solitude are not the same. Loneliness is an emotional state, often marked by a sense of disconnection, not just from others, but sometimes from oneself. It's the ache that arises when we feel unseen, unheard, or misunderstood, even in the presence of other people. You can feel lonely in a room full of friends. You can feel lonely in a relationship, in a marriage, or surrounded by family. Because loneliness is not always about physical aloneness. It's about a lack of emotional resonance and relational depth. Solitude, on the other hand, is an intentional and often empowering experience. It is the decision to be with yourself, not because no one else is available, but because you choose to honor your own company. It is the space where reflection, healing, and clarity take root. It's the freedom to sit with your thoughts, to feel your feelings without distraction, to listen inward instead of reaching outward for constant validation. And contrary to what we've been taught, solitude can be deeply satisfying, even joyful. Yet, when we're single, especially for an extended period, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that something is missing. We might start to internalize societal messages that suggest we're behind, that we've been overlooked, or that we're somehow lacking. We see friends announcing engagements, starting families, celebrating anniversaries, and we begin to wonder if we've taken a wrong turn somewhere. If we're honest, that question can sting. Why not me? But here's the truth. The idea that singlehood is a problem to be fixed is not only false, it's harmful. It creates unnecessary shame around a life stage that is often full of richness, possibility, and growth. It encourages people to rush into relationships for the wrong reasons, to escape aloneness rather than to build meaningful connection. And it discourages us from seeing the immense value in building a life that is whole and beautiful without romantic attachment. In reality, being single can offer something that relationships sometimes can't: the full attention of your own soul. When you're not focused on managing another person's emotions, navigating conflict, or prioritizing a shared vision, you have more space to ask yourself important questions. What do I actually want? What makes me feel alive? What values do I hold? What kind of life do I want to live? Not someday with someone else, but right now, just as I am. This period of singleness can be a sacred time, a time to reorient your life around your own needs and values, rather than constantly adapting to someone else's. It's a time to fill your own cup before pouring it into others, to build emotional self-sufficiency, to strengthen your inner world so that if and when a relationship does come, it's an addition, not a rescue. It's also a time to deepen other kinds of connection, the ones that are just as vital but often overlooked. Friendships, community, creative collaboration, spirituality, purpose. These relationships feed us in ways that romantic partnerships alone often cannot. And when nurtured intentionally, they create a rich emotional ecosystem that makes life meaningful and full, whether or not you have a partner. Take Maya, for example, a 38-year-old project manager living in Edinburgh. After a painful breakup, she decided to spend one full year not dating. During that time, she focused on personal development, therapy, writing, volunteering, and reconnecting with friends she had unintentionally drifted from. She spent long weekends exploring the Scottish countryside, joined a book club, and even learned how to play the cello. At first, she says, I was scared I'd be lonely. But what I found was something deeper, a sense of peace I didn't know I was missing. I stopped chasing someone else to give me that feeling. Or consider Alex, a 29-year-old software engineer in Seattle. He had never spent more than 6 months single since the age of 17. After his last relationship ended, he began practicing mindfulness and journaling daily. Slowly, he started noticing patterns in his past relationships, ways he had compromised, ignored red flags, or lost parts of himself. Being single, he reflects, gave me the clarity to realize I had never truly asked myself what kind of life I wanted. I just kept merging mine with someone else's. Stories like these remind us that being single isn't about waiting. It's about becoming more grounded, more self-aware, more capable of loving yourself and others in healthy, wholehearted ways. And from that place of wholeness, any future relationship is more likely to be rooted in true partnership rather than emotional dependency. So instead of seeing singleness as something you must endure, what if you saw it as something you could embrace? What if it's not the absence of love, but the presence of you? What if it's not a void, but a foundation, strong, steady, and spacious enough to build your most authentic life on? Because in the end, the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one you build with yourself. And that relationship doesn't just sustain you during single life, it supports you for the rest of your life. The power of self-love. One of the greatest gifts that being single can offer is the opportunity to develop self-love. Too often, we look to others for validation and love, hoping that someone else's affection will fill the void within us. However, the truth is that we cannot truly love someone else until we learn to love ourselves. Being single is the perfect time to nurture your own sense of self-worth, to understand your needs, and to set boundaries that prioritize your emotional well-being. Self-love doesn't mean being self-absorbed or narcissistic. It means recognizing your own value and treating yourself with kindness, compassion, and respect. It involves acknowledging your own strengths and weaknesses and accepting yourself for who you are, without judgment or criticism. It's about creating a healthy relationship with yourself so that you can approach relationships with others from a place of wholeness, rather than a place of neediness or dependency. When you're single, you can focus on creating a life that feels complete on your own. You can invest in your own happiness and growth, rather than waiting for someone else to come along and fill the gaps. This process of self-love helps build a solid foundation for future relationships because when you're comfortable and confident in yourself, you're less likely to settle for unhealthy relationships or allow someone to define your worth. Discovering your passions and purpose. One of the most significant advantages of being single is the ability to pursue your own passions and interests without the need to compromise. When you're not in a relationship, you have the freedom to explore different aspects of yourself and experiment with activities or goals that may have been pushed aside in the past. This can be anything from taking a solo trip to pursuing a new career, picking up a hobby, or diving into a creative project. Being single allows you to put your energy into the things that truly light you up. Without the constant demands of a partner's needs or expectations, you can devote more time to your personal development and growth. You may find that you have more mental and emotional energy to devote to your career, creative pursuits, physical health, or spiritual journey. Being single allows you to explore what makes you feel alive and excited, without worrying about balancing someone else's priorities or desires with your own. In fact, many people discover new passions or rekindle old ones during their time of singleness. They may finally take that painting class they've always wanted to try, join a fitness group, or learn a new language. They may find that, in the absence of romantic distractions, they're able to reach new levels of personal achievement and growth. Building strong friendships. While being single is often associated with romantic relationships, it's crucial to remember that meaningful connections don't have to be romantic to be fulfilling. During your time as a single person, you have the opportunity to deepen your friendships and cultivate new ones. These platonic relationships can provide support, joy, and a sense of belonging, all of which are essential for emotional well-being. Friendships offer a different kind of connection than romantic relationships, one that doesn't rely on intimacy or exclusivity. When we're single, we have more time and energy to invest in building strong, meaningful bonds with friends who share our values, interests, and passions. These friendships can provide emotional support, laughter, adventure, and a sense of community. Additionally, friends can offer a unique perspective on your life and provide insights that a romantic partner might not. They are often the people who know you best and can provide honest, unbiased advice. This can be especially valuable as you navigate your own personal journey of self-discovery. The long-term benefits of being single. While it's tempting to think of singleness as a temporary state that needs to be fixed, there are long-term benefits to this phase of life. When you use this time to work on yourself, learn more about your wants and needs, and establish a strong foundation of self-love and self-confidence, you're setting yourself up for success in all areas of life, including future relationships. By learning to thrive on your own, you become more resilient, adaptable, and emotionally independent. You are more likely to attract a partner who complements you rather than completes you. You will have a better sense of your boundaries, and you'll know what you truly want from a relationship. Being single allows you to create a life that's full, exciting, and fulfilling, regardless of your relationship status. Conclusion: being single is not a state of loneliness. It is an opportunity for self-discovery, growth, and empowerment. It's a time to reconnect with who you truly are, what you want from life, and how you want to show up in the world. Rather than feeling incomplete or waiting for someone else to fix your life, being single gives you the power to create the life you've always dreamed of on your own terms. Embrace this period of your life as a chance to explore your passions, develop self-love, and build strong, supportive friendships. Use it as a time to focus on your own growth and happiness, and remember that you are whole and complete just as you are. Being single isn't a reflection of what's missing in your life, but rather a celebration of the endless possibilities for what can come next, on your own, but never alone.